Hello, uh, I'm Miss Mansouri from 180T, and I want to teach you how to use the planer in 180T. Uh, the reason I say that the planer 180T is that this is a smaller planer, and the general rules and safeties applies to all the planers, but there might be small differences with the way we use things here. So um, that's why I'm emphasizing on the location. This is a small planer uh, put in this building as for the use of middle school children. In the good old times, well, some part was good that people actually allowed kids to do more work. Um, we've lost that to a sense. Anyway, maybe that's for the best. Who knows? Uh, so, so the power, the main power of the shop is off. You might hear some noise that these are the dragons, like the heaters. If they don't roar and blow heat, we're gonna freeze. But they also are deafening. So the power is off, meaning that I can touch this machine, put my hand in it. It's not gonna turn on. I'm not gonna get hurt. I want you to know that because the first thing I'm going to show you is how this machine actually works. And if you know how things work, the steps, what's happening inside, and what's the process, the chances are you taking care of yourself and being safe increases tremendously because you know this is how it works, what can go wrong, and then what to do to prevent it, or if something happens, how to react to it. So that's the reason I'm telling you the power is off. Um, so I'll be opening this up and show you and touching things, knowing that I'm not going to get hurt. When I'm starting to operate this machine, I'm going to be on top of my glasses. I'm going to be wearing the safety shield, which mine looks like this. Some of you have your own safety shields. You can wear safety goggles, but I wear a safety shield because I became allergic to sawdust, to wood really, which is something I actually absolutely love working with and making things. And I also will be wearing my mask, a respiratory mask, to prevent really the horrible rashes that happened to me last year. I believe I was overexposed actually to a lot of work. Anyway, so nothing, no say. I am not wearing any safety things. Power is off. If I turn the machine on, it's not going to go on. And I'm going to show you what's happening inside of this machine. I hope this will turn out well because I'm using the camera that I'm my own recorder, my own editor, my own everything. So that you can't be jack of all trades. That doesn't normally turn out good, but we'll see. You never know. Always you'll be surprised. All right. So the thickness planer is for preparing wood. Now I'm going to show you the body of it. There we go. So that's the body of it. Let me see if I can get this right with the camera. All right. Now, for those of you who have been in this lovely place, you've probably noticed it. And what I want to say, I forgot. I keep forgetting things. I forgot. Yeah, okay, so that's where it's located. Oh, the purpose of it. You use it to prepare wood. Oh, I lost myself now. So here's the thing. When would I use a thickness planer? Well, you use it to part of the preparation of their wood, meaning that we buy uh, wood from a lumber factory, and they have rough cuts, meaning the top is not flat and smooth. It's rough, and sometimes, most of the times actually, it's not even flat, 100% flat. You might think it's flat, but you look at it, oh, there's a curve, maybe because of drying process and that kind of stuff. So the first step of your production process of a project is wood preparation. Now, some people will go buy planed and joined wood from the stores, and that's fine too. But we don't do that. We actually buy the wood sort of rough, and then students here prepare it, which is part of their learning. So we're going to be preparing. Now, some of you that I've given your projects, I've already done it because of the pandemic thing. Otherwise, you'll be doing yourself. So in terms of preparation, what we do, we take a piece of wood and we want to really flatten the top and flatten the bottom of it, uh, if it's wide or whatever, to get the rough part off and also to get it flat. Another use of it is to get your wood to the right thickness, and that's what it's called, a thickness planer. So if you have a thick wood like this and you need a piece of wood which is smaller and you actually know the measurements, then you will be shaving layers off to get that. And one way of preparing your wood. So thickness planer um, is a main thing to use in the shop. When I told you that this is for this shop, is that if you were actually working in a much bigger shop, and a lot of other schools have much bigger, like those tech schools who have shops, they will have bigger machinery. Colleges have bigger machinery. Universities have bigger machinery. Workplace will have a bigger machinery. So you need to know that you start with a jointer, not with a planer. That's the place you start. But we can't start with a jointer because our jointer is also very small. So when I teach that lesson, I'm going to talk about that too. In our school, we start with the planer because the jointer is actually quite small, and there's no way to use it. In a way, you learn. If one machine is not good enough for you or you don't have the right equipment, you'll find solutions, and that's what we're doing here. All right, so we start with the planer. I'm going to show inside of the planer. I'm hoping that the camera can actually uh, take proper views of this. So here's what we'll be doing. I'm going to turn this down and we'll see if you can see that. This is the hood of the planer. I'm going to lift it up. Now again, I repeat, I lift it up because there's no power and I feel comfortable. And I'm putting a piece of wood there just to hold this open so you can see inside of it. This is not, you don't do that when you want to operate it, but I leave you to see what's inside of it. So there's one roller over here, and this roller has some edges on it, some grooves, which is basically to grab your wood. So this is a feeder. When you turn the machine on, this feeder is going to turn to your direction. So I'm standing in front of it, it's going to turn in my direction, and it's going to feed the wood inside of that. So there's no blade on this. This is just with some uh, grooves. The back of it, you'll see a bigger roller. Now this big roller has 3 slots. One slot, and I turn it around, another slot, and I turn it around, another slot. And in each slot, there is a long piece of sharp blade put there, held by these screws. You might see them. I don't know how well you can see them, but at least you know there are screws holding it in place. So the 3 blades are sticking out of the roller, the equal amount of height. And when the machine goes down, this starts turning fast speed towards to your direction. So the wood gets feed in, this turns, and the blades shave off the top layer of the wood. The exact same roller, which is a feeder, is behind of that, which will push the wood out. And that's how things are really done. Pretty simple process. In the bottom table, I'm going to lower the table. There's a handle here, and that's the table. You're going to bring this, oops, yeah, going down. You go down, and you probably see here that this is a roller also, but there's no grooves on it. This is just for easy sliding, sort of like conveyor belts when luggages come from the airport. So this just helps the wood go in. I'll repeat, wood goes here, and I'm going to show you. I just want you to see that. Wood goes here. You put the wood in here. The roller, this feeder turns when the gear is open, and then the roller here in the back is turning fast speed with 3 blades shaving off the top layer of the wood, and wood comes out from that direction. So I'm going to take this down now, and I don't need that anymore. I just use it to open this up, and I want to show you the measurements to the side. So let's see if you can actually see that. All right, so on this side of the planer, there is a measuring device. This is in millimeters, so that's the funny thing about things here. We have some things in metric and some things in imperial. In Canada, that's what happens. So we're going to be using comfortable with everything that we have over here. There's a handle that you notice. I move it up and down, and there's an indicator here. So when I'm moving this direction, the table is going down, and I move it the other direction towards, how do you say that? Let's say this is counterclock. Yes, counterclock. the table is coming up. When the table comes up, the distance between, let's see if I can move this to a proper position. All right, the distance between the table and the blade uh, reduces, meaning that you actually have to adjust the height of this table before starting your work. So one of the things that is very important about using a thickness planer, remember this, you need to adjust the height properly. And having it too open, too loose is not good. So if you think, okay, I'm just going to be careful, I'm just going to have a little bit extra space, those kind of things don't work with the shop. Some things you actually have to do it close and accurate, otherwise you're going to get hurt. So you do not give extra space between them, because pieces of wood can shoot back at you, get caught, and all that kind of stuff. You need to adjust the height for the wood to barely touch the top feeder, which I showed you. So you can actually measure the thickness of your wood, and then use either these measuring guide over here to go very close to that, or slightly even less, or put the wood in here as soon as it touches. So let's open this. As soon as it touches this first feeder, barely touching, then that's your good height. That's what you're going to be doing. Don't have it too open, too loose. All right, now the on and off button is on the side, just right there. And through the process of planing, when I put one piece of wood, it goes in, it comes out on the other side, the thickness has changed.
Excuse this interruption. Mr. Devine, could you please call 20011, Mr. Devine, 20011, thank you.
All right, the thickness here will change. The height here is changing, so you need to adjust the height, meaning you have to bring the table higher. So one more round, like a quarter round here, counterclock, you bring the table higher, very little, and you put your wood in again till you're happy with the result of your cut. Now this is just the basic of it, because depending on the type of wood, the width of the wood, the wobble the wood might have, you might turn the handle slightly more or less, and these are the things that comes with practice when you work. So that's why really, no matter how many videos you watch or you do these things online, it's really not the same as you actually do it in person. But at least you get to know this, and when you're practicing, you're hopefully mindful of this, and you realize that. And I'm here to support you anytime, anyway. So that will be and you do the other side of the wood, and you're gonna have a nice piece of wood. So I will be doing one, so you'll see. But once I start working, you can't really hear me. The dust collector will be on, the noise of the planer, the heaters are working. It's going to be extremely loud. Now, what did I say? Oh yes, by the way, thickness planer makes a very loud noise, but that doesn't mean it's actually extremely dangerous. With this machine, even though it makes a very loud noise, the blade is right in the middle. So if you don't put your hand in there, really, or why would you do that? Like, you're not going to get hurt in terms of getting cut with the blade. But there are issues with the planer that you can get hurt. So certain thicknesses you don't do, certain small thicknesses you don't do. You don't go very small on this. And I would say here, don't do less than a quarter, or maybe even 3/16. I have done smaller, and I can do smaller with this machine. But I'm not recommending you to do it. I'm going to check. So everything you're going to be doing, I'm going to be checking. And I have got hurt, but not because I put my hand in there, because the piece of wood shot back at my hand, and the piece of wood had edges. It wasn't a straight wood, so it got my hand open. And so that's another story. It's actually quite an interesting story. Anyway, we'll do the story later, if you are interested to hear the story. So the danger with this is the shoot back of the wood can shoot back at your hand, and it's very powerful. So it's like bruising your hand. But again, if you don't put your hands there, you're not going to lose your finger. However, this makes a very loud noise. So some people are terrified once they hear the louder the noise, they're more terrified. Wrong. Some things don't make a lot of sound, and they're actually very dangerous. Like people, you know how people are. Some people look very nice, and they're just horrid. And some people are very loud, and they're just actually quite nice people. So machines are like people, or people are like machines. Something in that line. Okay, we open the dust collector here to make sure that the chips go up. And whenever you're in doubt, the first thing you do, what do? Stop. That's the best thing to do, right? You don't continue doing something which is not correct or it's idiotic. You just stop. Okay. Uh, Before starting to plane, I told you that you need to adjust. You need to adjust the height. See what is the thickness of the wood, where should the table be. Another thing we need to know is that every piece of wood will have three dimensions. We have a thickness, we have a width, we have a length. So the question would be, what kind of width? What width can I put in the thickness planer? Can I plane a wide piece of wood like this width, wide? Well, if it doesn't go in, then you can. That's obvious, but you need to know the measurements. So we're going to talk about that. And as I said, it's a small planer. There are planers that are wider. The other thing is that how long? Now, obviously, as long as you want, because it just goes in. I mean, maybe that doesn't make much sense because you might say, oh, it's going to wobble, it's going to be like a seesaw. And we're not going to do that, but I'm just saying that you won't have limitations there if you can support it on other rollers, which we do have portable rollers here that you can actually put on both ends so the piece comes out straight. However, that will be the maximum. What about the minimum length of piece of wood if I want to plane? So a question would be, can I put a piece of wood in there with this length? Or can I put a piece of wood in there with this length to plane? Oh, it's not straight, it's not flat. Can I plane it? No, no, wrong. We don't do that. We're not going to do that. So how do you know what length should you put in the planer? So the reason I opened it up to show you how it works, and I showed you that there was a roller on top, a feeder, a roller on the bottom, and a roller blade inside. So rule of thumb, anything longer than the distance between the two rollers. Now here I'm going to show you. So here's how it is. This I'm showing inside of this, sort of like dissecting this or taking an X-ray. Inside the table from the side, we had a roller in the bottom and a roller in the bottom. And those rollers were just there to help this thing go through. You had a big roller in the middle, and that roller had these blades in them. Now this one has three, and the college I work on, they have four. So they have a bigger planer, and they have four blades on it. So I'm telling you, so you know. If I tell you there are three blades on this roller, that doesn't mean that's the only type of planer. And then we had the feeders on these two sides. Now the feeders had grooves on them, so they're not a smooth circle. So I'll repeat. These two rollers are nice and smooth, and they're just rolling when something goes on top of it. They don't turn when the machine goes on. These rollers, this is attached to the gear, so that's your feeder. That's your feeder. You put the wood in here, and the feeder is going to turn in this direction. The wood is going to go in that direction. It's going to come here. The blade is turning fast speed, just as that, and the roller and the blade is going to shave off the top of the wood, and this feeder is going to feed the wood out. So the size of the wood. The wood size should not be smaller than the distance between these two feeders. And the reason is when the feeder is moving this in, because it's a tight fit, it's also pushing it down. This is your science and physics and all that things, but it's just in action. So you probably know this and you get it because, if you don't, when you're walking or going up the steps, you'll feel all of these things, but you got to see here it in your action in using a machinery. The feeder is turning and grabbing this and pulling it in. In order to grab it, it needs to have some pressure on it, and that pressure means it's pushing it down. So when it gets to the end of here, if it's small, this is going to push it down, the other side is going to go up, and that's how it gets caught. And you're probably not going to get hurt by it, but the wood is going to turn, crack, snap, break, that kind of stuff. Something is going to go wrong, so you just don't do it. So that's just it in terms of the length of the piece of wood you're putting in. Now, how wide are these two? That will be the question. What's the distance between these two, if that's my indication and how I'm going to be using it? For this machine, we'll say 30 centimeters. So anything, any piece of wood less than 30 centimeters, which is 1 foot, 12 inches. So you grab a ruler or a tape measuring device, you make sure anything less than 30 centimeters, you don't. Now we can go like 28, 29. It's iffy. Um, you don't do it on your own. You ask me, I'll check. And I've told you many, many times, I'm going to repeat it. If I feel the slightest doubt about something, you're not doing it, and I'm not doing it either. So we want to make sure everyone is 100% safe. So you're going to measure the length of the wood. The other thing you need to know is that the wood has grain. So if you can see this, I hope you can see. This is actually an oak. It's a red oak wood. The lines here in the wood are indicating grain. This is a crack. Don't worry about that. I just brought a scrap piece of wood. Not that we won't use this. We will use this wood, but not with the crack part. And that's a knot over there. So these are the things you're going to watch, because when you have a knot, that means the direction of the grain changes. That means the planer can catch that. You're going to examine your piece before you're putting it in. Anyway, so the grains that go in the direction. It's very important to make sure the wood that goes in goes with the direction. What do I mean by that? I mean, you might have a long piece of wood, more than 30 centimeters long, and say, well, I can do that, that's fine. But maybe it's long in this way. So that's the length. I would say it's whatever that is, it's bigger than your 30 centimeters that I asked you to, but you will have the grain going in this direction. So that means that uh, this is smaller, this is longer, and the grains are against the length of the wood. We do not put any piece of wood against the direction of the grain inside the planer. That is just a no. There's no compromise, it's just a no. The blade is going to catch this and break it. Again, the possibility of you getting hurt is not much. And I'm saying not much because I've been surprised of things that I thought would not hurt someone, and there's nowhere written in any book that it will be. Maybe it's somewhere in a book somewhere in the world. I don't know. But things happen. So I've learned some stuff that I learned to say, well, most likely this is not going to happen. But you just don't. But the wood is just dead. The wood is done. It's going to break the. It's not going to do the surface. So the idea is that the cut goes with the grain. So you need to watch, examine the wood. If you're not sure, you're going to ask, Miss, is this going the right direction? And it's the best thing to do. Ask 100 times. Don't worry if you're bugging me or you think I'm busy. That's why I'm here. You keep asking. So rules, you gotta measure the thickness, how tall, how high the table should be. It's very important. A tight fit, barely touching the feeders, and it goes in. The width can be bigger than that, and then how wide is that? Well, this is pretty simple. I mean, this machine is, as I said, it's a smaller machine. So this is a 13-inch. It's actually 14-inch wide, but we in the two sides they're knobs and bolts that hold the head and other stuff, and they go up and down. So it's a 14-inch planer, but we don't really put 14 in it. We put slightly smaller in that. So that's how wide you can go. How much is 14 inches? 35 centimeters. So that's the maximum width you can put in here in this machine. You say, what do I do with a wider piece of wood? Well, in this job, we'll find a way of doing it, but we can't put it in the planer. That's done. It's just there's no compromise. But other planers might be bigger, and there are smaller planers too. People buy portable planers if they want to have a plane in their garage, and different sizes are available. And the length could be as long as you want, as long as we're going with the direction. So these are important things. Always with the direction, and you don't put wood like that. So you say, I'm gonna do these two sides. Now let me do these two sides too. Let me put it this way. You don't, because it can topple on one side, and that's dangerous. So if I need to fix these, which I will, I have to use a jointer, which will be another lesson, and we will be using the jointer. So that will be for now. I will be today, right now, I'm just gonna set up and start again to plane a piece of wood. So let me just do the talk over it, because then you won't hear me. So I'm going to be planing a wide piece of wood. Let me actually bring it. All right, so I'm going to be planing this wide piece of wood. And if you can see, it's pretty rough. So there is no, and it's good to have a look at it because once you plane it, you're going to see it's a rough surface. It's not level. The grains are going this direction, so I have it on. It's wide enough to go in there. I believe it's 13 or something around 12. There we go. So that's 11. So it can go in the planer. The thickness is about 2 inches. This type of wood, oh, and it's very heavy. This is walnut actually, and oh, put it down. And this is actually my piece of wood. I brought it from home. Um, so it's not here. I brought it. I wanted to show you how to plane, so I'm using this, and I have my reason. This is the widest I have here, so you can see the width that goes in. I'm also my allergic reactions were very related to using walnut and some other type of wood last year. Terrible, terrible. You had no idea. I had rashes and bleeding and everything. Anyway, so anyway, the specialist couldn't figure out much. They're gonna do some other tests. They gave me an appointment sometime in June. We'll see. Like this is February. Okay, so I want to see, and I work with some. Yeah, I need a couple of days to go to see if my my own understanding of my condition is actually correct. Which I felt I was overexposed with a lot of sawdust because I was working 7 days a week, at 6 8 hours, really constant working, and I feel like I'm monitoring and wearing all of these things, and knock the wood, which we have plenty of it here. Nothing has happened so far, so I'm pushing it. I'm saying it. Let's see if anything is going to happen to me slowly, so we can deal with this. So that's the story about it. I will set up stuff, um, start planning, then show you the result. Maybe I will be doing some actions because you can't hear me. All right. So let me get set up, and I'll see you now. Here we go. So walnut is hard piece of wood. Let me turn the dust collector off so you can hear me. All right. It's brownish color, and it's a very malleable wood, meaning even though when I say it's hardwood in terms of density, that doesn't mean it's hard to use it. It's just everything is much closer. The grains are denser. It's very malleable in a sense that it's a kind of wood that you can, with whatever machine, it works very well because you will have hard pieces of wood that are not very easy to use. That doesn't mean we don't use them. I'm just saying that this is lovely. It works. It turns very well. It turns on the lathe very well. It works on any machine. It's just a joy to use walnut, really, and it has a sort of a rich smell, and I can't even describe it. When you smell it, you just feel richness, and I'm not talking about money. Anyway, it's just rich, and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. Um, I had a chalk here. I wanted to show you something. What did I want to tell you about this walnut? I think I forgot. Just a second. Let me think. Remember. Maybe I should pause and then I will remember. I forget things, and then I just remember. I don't know what happens. It's my processes. I remember. That's how it is with me. Like it goes and it comes back. All right. So as we work, if this is it, if it's, you have a piece of wood, and as I told you, the piece of wood will not 100% be flat. So sometimes from the side, when you look at it, the piece of wood, even though it appears to be flat, but there's sort of a cup which creates a wobble when you put it on the table. So this is a rule of thumb again. When you want to put a piece of wood flat down on a machine, either a table saw or the planer, you put it down on this two corners. So this would be the table, and it's common sense and it's physics and it's science, and you don't want to put it this way because what's gonna happen? It's gonna rock, and we want to avoid that. So you're really watching everything. You're paying attention to a lot of stuff. You just can't go around and do things without constantly paying attention to details, checking, um, reviewing them. I can't emphasize enough. And I know some of these words are cliche, but really that's what you're going to be doing. That's why I say if people can go through this course, they know how to live. They'll learn how to live, because that's what we're going to be doing in life. You can't just randomly live. I mean, maybe you can. I don't know how it's going to end. Maybe good, but not for me. It's going to bug me. Anyway, you put the wood down on the two corners, making sure that it doesn't wobble. So when I put the walnut in, I flipped it. I don't know if you noticed in the beginning of the video. I wanted to put it in, and then I realized, oops, it's cupped. So I flipped it over, and that's why I'm explaining what I did. When I tried to do the other side, I did not change the handle, if you noticed. So I flipped the wood over to do the other side once I've done several layers of this. But then I actually did not change the height because um, the wood is not even. I just wanted to give it a try to go in if there's anything to get off. All right, so that's planing in 118T. Uh, in order to prepare a piece of wood, the next step would be I have to joint the corners, meaning I have to do the two edges, and I have other steps to do if I want to prepare wood for whatever purpose. So one of the next steps would be jointing, which would be another lesson. Sometimes we have to resaw a piece of wood. So I want you to get comfortable with the terms resawing. So the wood has been sawed in a mill factory, but it's thicker than what we want. And if I want a thin piece of wood, I'm not just going to take this thick piece, or I don't want to lift the walnut, it's heavy, and keep planing it till I get very thin, because when you plane it, you just chip off wood and you're going to lose everything. So it's just a total waste. We resaw, meaning we cut it in half in the length and or whatever dimension we want, and we then plane it again and have another piece of wood ready. All right, so that would be for the planing. I hope that you find it useful, and thank you very much.